Fear and confidence. That's what I want to speak about this morning. There are many things in our world that might give us some cause for fear. COVID-19, is the threat really over? What about the political turmoil in our country and across the world? What will the rising fuel prices and the resulting inflation mean for all of us in the year ahead? And what about the ravages of climate change, which we're told are only set to get worse? And then there are our own private fears, maybe known only to us, our personal concerns and anxieties. You know, fear can bind us and hold us back. It can blind our lives and stop us achieving things. Of course, there are some things we should fear. There are real dangers in life. Not every fear is irrational. But even then, it doesn't help us if we're controlled by our fears. Someone said, true courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave person is not the one who does not feel afraid, but the one who conquers that fear. So as Christians, what resources do we have when fear threatens to destabilise us and rob us of our peace? Where do we find confidence to face our fears? In Psalm 27, David is surrounded by dangers which are all too real, enemies who are desperate to slander him and pull him down. But David refuses to be cowed. Rather than giving way to fear, he's confident in God. And that confidence enables him to withstand every danger as he looks to the Lord. So listen again to verse 1, our motto verse for this year. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? What a ringing declaration of David's security and confidence in God. And we too can share that same security and confidence as we recognise that our lives are in the Lord's hands. So I want to unpack this verse and the rest of this magnificent psalm under three headings. Firstly, reasons for confidence. Secondly, the source of confidence. And lastly, a renewed call to confidence. So let's make a start. Firstly, reasons for confidence. David is facing a real threat from real enemies, yet here in verse 1 he addresses the question of fear head on. Whom shall I fear? He asks himself. And again, of whom shall I be afraid? He uses rhetorical questions to encourage himself to take confidence in God. What is the basis of his confidence? Firstly, the Lord is my light and my salvation. If we're Christians, then God is the light of our lives. He's the one who fills our hearts with joy, who guides us in the truth, and who illuminates our way, who lights up our way. He's the one who exposes the powers of darkness and drives them away. How blessed we are if we can say with David, the Lord is my light. And of course, as Christians, we know a deeper fulfillment than David could yet see. We remember the words of Jesus, who said, I am the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. John 8, verse 12. And in 2 Corinthians 4, verse 6, Paul speaks of God who made his light shine in our hearts to give us the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. Can you testify to the light of Christ which has shone in your heart? I hope so. And all this flows directly into and from our salvation. For David, of course, salvation speaks primarily of God's physical protection, deliverance, and victory. But again, there's a greater fulfillment, an extra dimension for us as Christians, as we reflect on God's ultimate rescue in Christ, who went to the cross for us, so that we might be forgiven, to save us from our sins. No wonder Paul in Romans 8, verse 31, erupts into a similar series of rhetorical questions. If God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also, along with him, graciously give us all things? Who will bring any charge against those whom God has chosen? It is God who justifies. Who then is the one who condemns? And in verse 35, who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall trouble or hardship or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword? And a bit later, no, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. The fact is that nothing can separate us from the love of God in Christ. So with such a Saviour, we too, like David, should be able to declare, whom shall I fear? And David goes on, the Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? He's saying, the Lord is my strength, my refuge, my place of safety. He is the one in whom our ultimate security is found. How blessed we are if we are found standing in Christ. At the cross, he won the decisive victory against sin, the world, and the devil. They may still hurt us if we are unwary, but they cannot ultimately harm us if we are trusting in him. And David knows this same security in God. When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. He says, experience enables him to trust the Lord in each and every situation. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. However many forces are arrayed against him, he refuses to fear. But his confidence is not in himself or his own abilities, but in the living God who's acted to deliver his people. And we too can have confidence in the same living God through Jesus Christ. So when we feel discouraged or dispirited, anxious or intimidated by different concerns, may we learn to question our fears like David did, to firm up and strengthen our faith. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? So firstly, we've seen our reasons for confidence in God. Secondly, we look briefly at the source of this confidence. For David, the source of his confidence comes from seeking God's face in the good times and the difficult times. He seeks to maintain a close walk with the Lord. One thing I ask from the Lord, he says, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. David's one desire is to know the Lord more intimately, to enjoy unbroken communion with God in order to worship his glory and discern his will. He's not literally seeking to stay in the tabernacle or the future temple all the time. That privilege would only be open to a priest or Levite. But he longs to abide in God's presence. His relationship with God is that precious to him. And I wonder, is that our object in our private devotions? To gaze on the Lord's beauty and to seek his face and his will? Do we spend time seeking to know him better as he's revealed himself to us in Jesus Christ? Remember the words of John 1 verse 14. The Word became flesh and tabernacled among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. And a few verses later, in verse 18, no one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son, who is himself God and is in the closest relationship with the Father, has made him known. If David longed to see the Lord's beauty in the sanctuary, how much more privileged are we who can know his beauty and majesty fully revealed in Jesus Christ? Will we seek his face in order to worship him in spirit and truth? As he seeks God's face continually, David is confident in the Lord's protection. For in the day of trouble, literally the evil day, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. Who are we trusting? Who will we trust in the evil day? David looks to the Lord for safety and protection, and he knows that his head will be exalted. And we too can lift up our heads, even in troubled times, as we look to Jesus Christ. No wonder David wants to sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. As he seeks God's face and rejoices in his deliverance, he finds that worship is a joy, not a duty, resulting in exuberant praise. How about you? Is worship a joy or is it a duty? Does our worship flow from time spent in the Lord's presence, seeking his face? And here's the thing. David seeks God's face not only in the good times, but also in the difficult times. His first instinct is to seek the Lord. Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. David sets his heart to seek God, to seek after God. In a time of trouble, he turns to God. His heart responds to God's gracious invitation. God invites us to seek his face, to come into his presence. And what a wonderful privilege. May we have that same hunger and desire for it that David had. One writer says, time spent with God in such circumstances is always well spent. Sometimes trouble evaporates as we spend time in his presence. Sometimes it stays the same, but we are changed with a new confidence and clarity to face it. And sometimes nothing changes in the immediate, and we are thrown back on God, which is no bad place to be. David's one concern is not the fear of his enemies, real though they are, but that God might withdraw his favour. He knows that he is a sinner, but he looks to God's grace. Sorry, I'll go back a bit there. You have been my helper. Do not reject me. Do not reject or forsake me, God my Saviour. On reflection, he's certain that God, who has been his helper in the past, will not abandon him. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. The love of God is greater than that of the very best parents. Some of us have had wonderful parenting. Some of us have had, unfortunately, experiences with parents that weren't so good. But the love of God is greater than that of the greatest parents. Isaiah 49, verse 15. Can a mother forget the baby at her breast and have no compassion on the child she has borne? Though she may forget, I will not forget you. That's God's faithfulness. I will not forget you. The fact is that God will never forget us. We may feel powerless, but we are not helpless. God is our helper and our Saviour. I'll say that again because I jumbled it a bit. We may feel powerless, but we are never helpless. God is our helper and our Saviour. How wonderful to be able to say, God is my helper and my Saviour. Again, David seeks guidance in God's way. Above all, he wants to be kept in God's paths. Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors, or literally, my watchful foes. Sometimes those around us are just waiting for us to slip up as Christians. May the Lord help us to walk faithfully with him, giving others no opportunity to sneer and dishonour our Saviour. Sometimes the path before us is a very challenging one. We may be tempted to fear. But I love the words of Mary Slessor, the famous missionary to Calabar, part of what is now modern Nigeria. She said, Lord, the task is impossible for me, but not for thee. Lead the way, and I will follow. Isn't that wonderful? I think it is. Lord, the task is impossible for me, but not for thee. Lead the way, and I will follow. And she went on, why should I fear? I am on a royal mission. I am in the service of the King of Kings. Well, we may not all be called to Calabar or Nigeria, but we are all in the Lord's service. We are in the service of the King of Kings. Lead the way, and I will follow. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? So lastly, we see a renewed call to trust, to confidence. With all that stands against him, David holds on to his trust in God. I remain confident of this, he says. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. David's confidence remains intact. He trusts that he will see God's goodness, not only in heaven, but in the here and now, He doesn't just have some pious hope for the future, but he has a trust and expectancy in the present. He knows that his life is in God's hands and that no one can take it before God's appointed time. So he ends with a word of encouragement to himself and to others facing trials. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. We may be powerless, but we know where our faith and our hope rest if we are trusting in the Lord Jesus Christ. So we can keep on trusting God in the ups and downs of life, confident of his help in whatever adversity we face. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. If it only said, be strong and take heart, that would be empty advice. We can all say that to people, be strong and take heart. But it would be empty, an empty sentiment. But notice how it begins and ends with wait for the Lord. He is the one who gives us hope, strength, and expectancy. Whatever lies ahead for us in 2022, may we trust in him, seeking his face, and looking to him with unshakable confidence and hope. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? May God be praised for his wonderful grace to us. In Jesus' name, amen.